Hey everybody, thank you for joining me for episode 21 of Jillian's Clinical Corner. Today we're talking about something I'm sure many people have heard of, but maybe aren't sure of what it is or if they've experienced it, and that is imposter syndrome. Let's start at the basics. What is imposter syndrome? From the Harvard Business Review article published online in February 2021 titled Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome. Quote, imposter syndrome is loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. It disproportionately affects high achieving people who find it difficult to accept their accomplishments. Many question whether they're deserving of accolades. End quote. Who experiences imposter syndrome? Well, anyone can. But like they said, it typically is experienced by high achievers, and it actually largely affects women. Also, from the same article, imposter syndrome was originally discussed in 1978 by psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes. They called it imposter phenomenon and focused on this in high achieving women. Why may it affect women more often? Women have been more often second guessed or enter the workforce having to prove themselves or prove their worth, or sometimes even prove they weren't hired just because they're a woman. This may lead to second guessing their own skills and feeling like they don't have the needed requirements to be there at the job. But why might women or others experience imposter syndrome when they work at a location that values them as an employee or where they're not necessarily experiencing that above situation? Well, it might be a product of previous experiences or environments, so their learning history. And it also might be anxiety manifesting itself as imposter syndrome. Certain level of nervousness or anxiety is appropriate and quite common for starting a new job, giving a presentation or a training, or interacting with new people. Imposter syndrome takes those first day jitters to a whole new level, making you feel as if you really don't belong in that scenario or don't have the skills to be there, even though you have actually achieved a certain level of schooling or of knowledge in that area. You absolutely do have what it takes to be there, but you are questioning yourself even when no one else probably is. Also, keep in mind that different people may experience this feeling differently or at different times. For myself, I get this feeling each time I'm about to give a presentation. Those first kind of 5 or 10 minutes right before the presentation, the thoughts in my mind swirl around, such as, why would these people listen to me on this topic? I'm presenting to people who already know this or who have more experience than me on this topic, and so on and so on. Sometimes I experience this even when I'm about to record or release a Clinical Corner episode. So, what's wrong? Am I really not knowledgeable enough about these topics or the topics I present on? No, of course not. In my experience and in my opinion, this is a pretty normal thing that happens from time to time when people are put in somewhat high pressure situations, such as giving presentations, running a training, or starting a new job. Also, I think imposter syndrome can be managed in ways that anxiety can probably also be managed. From a Healthline article published online in April 2021, there are ways to combat imposter syndrome, including acknowledging your feelings, building connections, challenging your doubts, and avoiding comparing yourself to others. So, kind of when I'm experiencing that imposter syndrome feeling of like, I don't know this topic, I can't believe I'm about to give a presentation on this, I kind of acknowledge those feelings of nervousness. And maybe I have connections at my workplace, and I might say, I'm really stressed about giving this presentation. And someone can kind of say, oh, you got this, you're all good. And it just is a little bit of reassurance to quell that anxious feeling right before you give a presentation. How does imposter syndrome affect BCBAs and therapists working in ABA? Like, why am I even talking about this as a topic for Clinical Corner? I think it's I think in the same ways it affects people in other jobs, it affects people in ABA, so BCBAs and therapists. But for BCBAs, we may be challenged actually more often by people who don't understand ABA, by parents, by colleagues. And maybe these challenges make us second guess the plan that we wrote or what we're recommending. Sometimes challenges are a normal and a necessary part of the assessment and treatment plan process. Families certainly should ask questions about things they don't understand and voice their concerns about treatment plans or programming decisions. But sometimes those challenges might cause us to second guess ourselves. BCBAs also are often presenting things that may not have been done before and need to stand on their knowledge and their experience along with research or backup, to back up their recommendations. All of this may contribute to the feelings of imposter syndrome for these individuals. In addition, we're often working with new families all the time. And that piece alone might contribute to that imposter syndrome of feeling like, why am I here? They know their child better, and feeling that anxious feeling of starting with a brand new client. Personally, also, I do want to say I don't love the term imposter syndrome. I think this feeling is anxiety when either starting something new or doing something challenging. I think imposter syndrome sometimes can be accounted for by other experiences at a workplace, such as gender or racial biases, that are making you feel like you don't belong there. Both articles I've discussed today explore that idea further, and I will link both of those in the notes on the YouTube info so you can read them yourselves. There are many good resources within that and ways to ask yourself, is this really imposter syndrome? Thank you so much for listening today for something a little out of the ordinary, but something that's really affecting us as BCBAs and as professionals in the field. So, thank you so much for watching this episode of Jillian's Clinical Corner.